Okay, this is a tutorial to introduce you to Google SketchUp. If you go down to your dock and over to the Applications folder, alphabetically under Google SketchUp 8, we'll find your icon might be a little bit different than this, but you want to open the SketchUp application. You may go straight to the Choose Templates file if it's the first time that your computer has used Google SketchUp, but otherwise you'll get this pop-up with various helpful links, including these video tutorials that I highly recommend. But we want to go to the Choose Templates, and if you scroll about halfway down, we're going to choose Product Design and Woodworking in Inches, and start using SketchUp. Here's our blank palette with a three-dimensional axis. The blue axis is pointing straight up, the green axis points back and to the right into the page, and the red axis points out and to the right, coming out towards us. First thing we want to do is go up to View, Tool Palettes, Large Tool Set. View, Tool Palettes, Large Tool Set in order to open the larger tool set over here on the left. Notice that most of the tools in the top toolbar are repeated in this tool set, but we have a few extras down at the bottom that we're going to use in this tutorial. Let's start by using the rectangle tool. So click on the rectangle tool, come over into the first quadrant, click, scroll, and click again in order to create a rectangle. And if we come down here, you'll notice there's a dimensions box. And we can actually just type into that dimensions box 80, 50 and hit return, and it'll resize our rectangle to 80 inches by 50 inches. Keeping the rectangle tool, I'm going to snap to an endpoint, go up to a midpoint, and come out to another midpoint and create a rectangle that is exactly 1/4 of the original rectangle. I'll do that again at an endpoint, to a midpoint, and over to the edge. I've now created three distinct regions. If I go up to the pointer tool or the selection tool, I can select these regions and see that they are in fact three different regions. With the selection tool, I'm going to highlight this line segment. Google SketchUp uses something called sticky geometry. If I use my Move tool, which is this one up here, or in the larger tool set, it's over here, and I move that line segment around, notice that everything that is attached to it moves with it. That's because the endpoints of that line segment are being moved, and they determine where the other lines end. This can be very frustrating if you move something that you didn't intend to. And so it's important to remember the Command Z function. Command Z, or squiggly Z, is the undo command, and it'll get you back to where you were before you made that mistake. Alright, let's go over to the eraser tool. Notice that if I have an enclosed shape, it will be filled in as a solid. If I erase one of those line segments, because I no longer have an enclosed shape, the interior will be erased as well. I can erase that line, and if I erase this interior line, notice that since I still have an enclosed shape, it'll remain filled in. Let's go up to the Push-Pull tool, which is also over here on the large tool palette. And if I hover over that L shape, it'll highlight it in a bunch of dots. If I click and drag upward, it will offset that base to create a three-dimensional shape. I can just type in 20 to fill the distance, hit return, and it will have raised it 20 inches. Now let's say that I really wanted 25 inches. Well, I can hover over that top face again, click and drag it, type in 5 this time to get a total of 25, and hit return. And I'm now 25 inches above the original base. Just going to move this over a little bit so that we can see the whole thing using my hand tool. I'm going to go back to the rectangle tool and create a rectangle in that corner on that face. Use my Push-Pull tool, highlight that rectangle and push it downward all the way to the offset limit of 25 inches and let up, and it will have taken away that entire shape. I could also use my push-pull tool to move these sides around. And again, Control Z 3 times to get back to where I started from. Well, let's look at the circle tool. I could add a circle on the top face by click, drag to set the radius, and let up. Notice that as my cursor moves around a corner here, SketchUp knows that I'm on this other face. And I can create a circle there as well. Take my push-pull tool, I'll pull this circle out to create a cylinder, and I'll push that circle down all the way through. And now we've created a very interesting shape. And let's learn a little bit about how to navigate around this shape. I showed you the hand tool. That allows us to go left and right or up and down without changing our perspective. I also have the orbit tool. The orbit tool allows me to change my perspective and rotate the entire screen around. If I want to get back to where I started from, I can come down here to the previous tool, and it'll take me back to where I started from. I also have the zoom tool, which allows me, if I click and scroll down, I'll zoom out, and if I scroll up, I'll zoom in. The shortcut for the zoom tool is the 2-finger scroll. If I put 2 fingers on the touchpad and scroll down, I'll zoom out, and scroll up, I'll zoom in. The nice thing about this shortcut is I can actually zoom in wherever my cursor is. So if I move the cursor over to this corner and zoom in, I'll zoom in on that corner, zoom out. Or maybe I want to zoom in on this cylinder and zoom out. Now, if I get a little bit lost, I can come over and hit the Zoom Extents tool, or I call this the Center tool. If I click on the Center tool, it'll put my object right in the center of the screen. One of the last things we want to look at is the different camera views. If I go up under Camera, Standard Views, I can view this from the top, bottom, front, back, left, right, or an isometric view. Let's go ahead and do the top view. Now let's go ahead and look at the isometric view, which is dependent on whatever previous view that you have. So if I click on isometric here, I'm going to have the top isometric view. Let's go ahead and orbit that just a little bit. And scroll down a little bit. And zoom out a little bit to return to our original view. If we go back to the eraser tool, we can erase one line at a time and see how that any shape that was defined, any surface that was defined by that line will disappear. And you can play with this a little bit to see how it works. And when you get bored of that, you can use the selection tool to draw a rectangle around everything and hit delete in order to have an empty palette again. And that's the end of this first introductory tutorial.